they need that information to be accurate based upon the experiences of other actual filmmakers. So the data, it's not stuff that you've made up. You know this data because you're getting it from other filmmakers and from other distribution companies who have actual numbers, actual facts. The other thing is that you do the in addition to that, you also create the film business plan, because part and parcel of the film business plan, the core elements of the film business plan are the financial forecasts, the marketing, sort of the marketing strategy, the release strategy, and then also the just conversations about the talent. Because if you're doing a faith-based film, name talent is a different group of people than if you're doing a horror film, or if you're doing a rom-com, or if you're doing something that's targeted, as we were talking about a moment ago, Pakistan, English-speaking people from Pakistan and India. I mean, it's a very niche-based market. So can you talk a little about all the different kinds of things that you do when you're working with producers, or all the things they can work with you to do?
Right. Okay. There were so many things I wanted to respond to that you were saying, Nancy, so it's a real good overview. But first, I'm trying to understand the film that you've got in your hands, okay? But I'm also trying to understand the film that you see, because the script stands as one thing, but the movie that you're going to make or try to make, what's the feel, what's the approach to it, what's the look, et cetera, those types of things. I'm also trying to understand that. So it's collaborative to a certain extent in that fashion. I'm trying to really get into it. But the script could run against what you think you're going to achieve. And so thereby, when Ray mentions, we're trying to, really both understand it, but also manage it to a place where it should be, then that comes into play.
So are you saying if, let's say, if somebody brings you a faith-based film and for some reason it's got elements, they think they're being avant-garde, or they think that they're doing something unique, but for some reason it has it has R-rated elements, or it has elements that talk about hardcore drug abuse, or it sort of dives into a very realistic. So in other words, it's not aiming towards sort of a Hallmark look. It's aiming for a very sort of gritty.
Right. That's a really specific. That's a really specific. So, interestingly, among faith-based people, particularly the Christian-oriented groups of faith-based people, there are different groups within that. But the smallest group is going to be the one that is susceptible for things that are edgier, things that are more R-rated, so there's different segments. If you're doing that, your target audience is going to be much, much smaller than the conventional faith-oriented audience. So if that's the way you're doing your film, we may be going, why are you trying to push this above 2 million or 1.5 million? Because you're going after this more urban-oriented, just as an example. So once I really, really understand it, I know I understand a film when I pitch it back to the client. And they go, that's the film I'm trying to make. That's what I'm trying to do. Now, there are clients who, have a disconnect. You know what I'm saying? So we try to give them both data and, information that helps them understand what it is that we see out in the marketplace, and make it, really as clear as possible.
So when a client like me brings you a screenplay, you take a look at the screenplay and you read it. And sometimes you go, the screenplay, I understand kind of what you're going for, but it's just not really close. It's not even done. The screenplay needs to go to coverage, and you need to implement changes to it just to make it good.
That's accurate.
Whatever it's going to be. The next thing you might do is take a look at it and go, okay, now that it's a workmanlike piece of work, and it's got some good elements. I can see how you're going with, and now, I know by reading it that what you're looking for is a young adult science fiction. and
Right.
and then you can go, okay, so the people that are successful in that genre are, let's talk about the Hunger Games. So you start making a list of those. So you look for comparables. If somebody brings you a screenplay and you look at the marketplace and you know you have a database of thousands of films that are cross-indexed across,
Right.
Everything
That's
from
right.
having a female protagonist, female protagonist, for having martial arts, for having like a whole huge set of criteria that are related to
Right.
that film, and you have an encyclopedic, because you study this all day, every day, and you're watching, what's doing well on video, what's doing well in quote unquote theatrical release, which doesn't exist quite at the
Right.
moment. You're looking at all of these things. So if somebody brings you something and you go, that's interesting, I have never seen that. Not only have I not seen that, I've never seen anything, or I don't know, I don't know what genre this is. This is not falling into any space. So that means that when you take it to distributors, you can't tell them this is a young adult science fiction, because they're going to say, well, if it was a young adult science fiction, then I'd be looking at a teen girl or a teen boy.
What you brought me to is the edge of, there's really several audiences that I'm trying to prep a picture for.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to prep it for, the team,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So the team is all on board.
You mean like the cast and crew?
Yeah, because they're your partners, and you're going to have to convince them, unless you just throw money at them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to set it up for investors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, investors are a different kind of a group that are going to look at it a different way. I'm also trying to prep you for how distributors are going to think about your film and what they're going to latch onto. And at the end, with distributors, it's much more workaday, as you and I were discussing, at another time. It's much more workaday how they approach the film. It's business for them. They'll get excited about your film, but that's not the driving force. With investors, I'm trying to make it understandable that it's a good investment. It has potential, but the path to execution also has to be there.
Mm-hmm.
You not only have to shoot a good film, but you are going to have to prep yourself toward the marketing and things of that nature. So I'm trying to do all of those.
Mm-hmm.
I'm literally trying to think from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, which is people watching it,
mm-hmm.
and how you are prepared for all of those. So the information and the data I'm putting in there is used by investors, but if you really pay attention to it, it's also for you, the filmmaker,
mm-hmm.
to prepare yourself for things that you might not have been thinking about, and to position yourself and position your film in the world. Because every one of those audiences I was talking to,
mm-hmm.
you're positioning your film for them,
mm-hmm.
in their mind. Yeah, go ahead.
So you're saying, you do the film analytics, which is taking a look at the film and then looking at similar films and seeing how they did. Then you do the financial forecast to predict how this film's going to do based upon its budget and the amount where it's likely to get distribution. And by looking at the distributors that buy this specific kind of content, and then you do the financial forecasts on how much money is going to come in and when it's going to come in. Then you create the business plan that documents all of those things and documents the strategy, the marketing plan. The document that you end up creating is the business plan actually is the blueprint for how the film will be profitable. And so it's because I get a lot of times people go, well, can you show me a sample business plan? And I go, I got business plans. But people don't realize is that business plans come from a good business plan comes from correct development. It comes from doing the film analytics and all these pieces. It's not something born out of your head. It's not something carbon copied from somebody else's film. It actually is a business plan. It's the plan for the business. It's what you execute to make the business go.
That's it. People come to me and they go, I want a business plan. Well, what do you want? You want a stack of paper?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you want a plan for your business?
It's actually going to make it so that investors put money in and lenders who have to work with you, like the SBA, will put money into your project.
Right.
Because they have to believe that this film's actually going to make money.
Yeah. And so at the audience end, we're trying to understand the audience and how they think and feel and how they approach material. So if we're talking about Uh, so I think a relatively unknown fact among horror films,
Mm-hmm.
once you cross the R divide in horror films,
Mm-hmm.
female audiences drop off like
Yes, they
flies.
do. Yes, they do.
They run away.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone brings me, which I've had to work on, they bring me a film and it's young people in distress, et cetera, it's primarily going to be targeted to you. And then they have R-rated sex scenes, and along with these other things or other things that push it toward an R, I go, your female audience is not going to be there.
Right.
For this.
And that's what Blumhouse does. The people don't get the fact that if you look at a lot of films, they very specifically go to PG-13, but they don't go to R, because PG-13 horror films make so much more money than an R-rated film. Generally, in other words, or at least that's been, what seems to be.
Yeah, the opposite side of that coin is if you're targeting male audiences and you're too soft,
yes,
you can lose our audiences. So you're always working for a balance there. And if you understand it, so I talk to people and I go, do you think this is going to be R, the way you're visualizing it? Tell me about that. How does that work? And we've got the script. So we've got elements in the script. How is this going to be played? How is it going to, work on screen? Are you going to run into this problem with ratings and things of that nature? So in 2002, Congress essentially mandated that R-rated films were going to be in trouble if young people were getting into the theater. In that case, DVD, and on digital platforms, it's much less problematic. But so they were able to clip off 75% of the teens that were getting into R-rated films.
Wow.
So, and theaters had to start hiring guards to manage that inflow. And then they tried to charge the studios for the guards. That didn't work
So
well.